Greetings and salutations, scholars. Welcome back to the Scholars with a Capital S podcast. This week we have two guests we will be interviewing to discuss things such as civic engagement and civic leadership through their own personal experiences and work expertise. To start off, I want to say thank you so much to Dr. Alison Handy Twang for coming and joining us on the Scholars podcast. Would you like to introduce yourself to everyone and who you are to the Binghamton campus?
So I'm the director at our Center for Civic Engagement on campus. I have worked at the CCE professionally for a little over 9 years now, and it's a lot of fun. I went to Binghamton for my undergrad. I studied political science and history, stayed for my master's in public administration. I love this campus, love the work that I do. I've been really fortunate to find myself in this career path.
Okay, that's awesome. I'm also a political science and history major. So represent here at Binghamton. What got you interested in civic engagement in general? Have you done any research or anything or worked with any other organizations in the past before coming into this role?
So when I was doing my undergrad, like I said, I studied political science and history. So I was definitely into sort of understanding what was going on in the world and the way that people were involved in that work and could make an impact within their communities. But I really had no sense of what I wanted to do, how that sort of would translate to a career. I had thought about law school mostly because it seemed like a lot of other poli-sci majors were going to law school, but then really realized that wasn't something that actually really aligned with my career goals. But I learned about the Master's of Public Administration program. I think it was the fall of my senior year. I was like, oh, that's really interesting because it felt like it combined my interest in contributing to the community in positive ways, but also spoke a little bit more to my strengths and skill sets, which are more like behind the scenes, administrative management sort of work, and not so much like direct service. I had found through different volunteering and things I had done that while I liked doing direct service, it wasn't something that I necessarily thought really spoke to my strengths. And I didn't realize that there were these sort of career paths you could do, applying different sort of skills within the public sector. And so the Master's of Public Administration felt like a really good fit. And so I stayed at Binghamton to do my master's, and that was just an amazing experience. Like, just felt like I'm in the right place. I'm with my people. I really loved all my classes and my faculty. And I would say it was especially when I started the master's program that I really got more involved in things that were directly related to what I wanted to do career-wise. So I had an internship with the Shenango United Way, which I grew up in Shenango County, so I was able to do that internship the summer before I started my master's. And I was organizing the site visits that they did with their funded partners. So I got to work with community volunteers who were on their review committees, as well as work with a lot of different nonprofits in the Shenango County area. And so that was really cool to get to see the work that they were doing and be able to contribute to supporting an important organization in my hometown. And I did an internship with the United Way of Broome County in my master's as well. And one of my faculty members, David Campbell, who some listeners might know because he also teaches in the Scholars Program and has been an amazing mentor and advisor to me really since I started doing this work over 10 years ago. He connected me to a paid opportunity as a consultant with the New York State United Way. They did an annual survey for all of their member United Ways across the state. And so I led that survey development and analysis of the data and presented at their summer conference and was actually hired by one of the local United Ways who was at that conference. So all that networking that gets talked about as being important to your job growth has been really true.
It actually is.
It's real. So I worked at the United Way of Tompkins County, and I was working primarily on their sort of community impact side. So I managed our grant process. We had partners who applied for funding for us, and we awarded over $1 million in funds to those partners every year. And I also worked on their youth civic engagement programming. So we had a smaller grant program where high school students would receive the applications, review, and make the funding decisions. So really similar to Dr. Campbell's philanthropy class that he teaches. here at Binghamton, but we did that for high school students, and they had, I think, around $25,000 that they awarded. And I loved doing all of that work, and eventually had the opportunity to come back to the university, and it's been really meaningful because I'm in taking that community work that I was doing, but also combining it with supporting young people in their own journeys to find what's meaningful for them in civic life.
Yeah, that's amazing. I didn't know about your past background working with high school students. And like you said, that's so interesting considering the demographic that you're working with here on campus in a way. So now that you're in this, director position, what do you find to be most important in this role? What kind of initiatives do you find important to work on? You guys have to cover so many bases through, different levels of engagement, whether you're working through a super busy election season or dealing with the in-between years when people struggle to remember that it's important to be engaged. So what's that experience like for you?
We definitely do a lot through the CCE. So we know there isn't a one size fits all. So supporting students, whether they're interested in volunteering in community service or they're interested in doing research related to community engagement or getting involved in voting or more advocacy work, having different supports and resources to encourage students along all of those pathways is really important to us. We're also really trying to focus on creating a culture of this on campus. So we have programming that is really targeted to students. Our youth initiative is our biggest community-based program where students are volunteering or interning in local K-12 schools. We have transportation that's available for that program. So looking at how we can reduce barriers for students getting involved is important. We also have tons of students who just are getting involved on their own in the community, whether that's as individuals or through student orgs that they're a part of. And that's really amazing, too, to see that students are able to, on their own, go out and really make a huge impact on our local community. And then also looking at how we can integrate this into the curriculum. So supporting faculty in bringing community engagement into their teaching, into their research. So we have grants available for faculty to support transporting students out to their community sites or bringing in speakers. So we're really trying to support having an institution that really values civic and community engagement. Day to day varies so much depending on where we are in the year and what's going on in the community nationally, especially with our nonpartisan voting program. That programming looks different from year to year depending on where we are in the election cycle. We always say there's no off years from voting, so we actually run pretty much the same program every single year in terms of what we offer. The difference tends to be what the sort of uptake is on that. So, students can walk into the office and register to vote all year, every year. Faculty can invite us into their classes every year to register their students to vote, but we do get a lot more participation in those opportunities when it is presidential or midterm election year. I started here in 2015 professionally, but I was also a grad student in the office when I was doing my master's. So I was here for the 2012 presidential election too. I was helping out at the campus polling place and did a little bit with voter registration. So I've been through a lot of different election years on campus, and we've seen really tremendous growth in student interest in getting involved politically. So our voter registration and turnout rates were really on a steady climb starting in 2016 and really through 2020. We did see a dip in turnout in 2022 midterms, which was in line with what turnout looked like as a whole in New York. And so now heading into this presidential election cycle, I think we're back to seeing more kind of energy from the students, which is great. We've had a lot of student traffic into the office to register to vote. So whatever ways that students want to make their voice heard and make an impact, we're here to support them in that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Actually, what I found most interesting when you were talking is I had no idea that you guys provide grants for professors and classes. That's really interesting.
And for those that don't know, you actually teach one of our Scholars courses, Scholars 227,
which is our civic engagement course for scholars. So any freshmen or sophomores listening, it's a course you take your spring semester of your sophomore year.
And it's all about learning how you can be civically engaged in your life. And obviously, you teaching Scholars 227.
That's a pretty unique opportunity to see you in that kind of classroom. We have a lot of graduate students teach those courses, and we've had a lot of people come in and provide their perspectives. But you coming in as the director, being able to also teach while working your day-to-day in the office.
What has that experience been like for you?
Yeah, I love teaching this class. This year will be maybe my 6th time teaching it. I taught it a couple years, and then I took a couple years off because I needed to finish my dissertation because I was doing my PhD part-time while I was working full-time. And so I was like, okay, I need to take a break from teaching and try to get my dissertation done. But I had told Steve Ortiz that I would come back to teaching once I finished my PhD. So once I did that, he had reached out and been like, we want you to come and teach again, which I was really happy to do. And so this will be my 3rd kind of year in a row teaching it again since finishing. What I like especially about teaching this class is that it's a requirement for all the scholar students. So they're coming from all different sort of backgrounds, maybe levels of interest in civic engagement, all different majors across the institution. So we're able to really think about what can this work look like for a really diverse group of students. A lot of times students who are participating in our programs are ones who know that they want to have a career working in this field.
They're seeking it out.
They're really seeking it out. And it's rewarding to get to work with students who maybe aren't seeking it out. And so helping them see where you can still make an impact for the issues that matter to you, for the skills that you bring to the table, and that you can still make an impact through giving money, giving time, serving on a board, calling your elected official if there's an issue that really matters to you that you want to make your voice heard on. There's a lot of small things that you can do and just build those habits into your life, and collectively can make a really big impact. It's a good sort of challenge professionally for someone who works in this space around how do you convey that information and make it exciting to students who maybe came into the class not always being the most interested, although I have been fortunate, but that is a good sort of challenge to be faced with, is how can you show students how this can fit into their lives and be relevant?
Yeah, I definitely liked that course because it gave the space to have conversations that typically you're not having in other classrooms, unless, like you said, you're that person that's like, I want to be a political science major, I want to be involved in activism on campus. Even kids that aren't interested in that, when they're coming into Binghamton and they're bio major, you hit a wall where you stop really getting access to those conversations with your peers. And so having the time to really expand your view on how you participate in civic engagement is a really nice opportunity, especially as a requirement. This is a little off topic, but you mentioned your dissertation, and I was just wondering, what did you work on for that?
Yes. Yeah, so my PhD is in community and public affairs. It's a unique PhD program because it's interdisciplinary. Most PhDs, you're getting more and more narrowed in on a specific sort of disciplinary area. But the program that I did, there were students in the program who had really diverse sort of academic backgrounds and areas of research interest. We were able to learn a lot from the other students in the program. My focus for my research was around higher ed, civic and community engagement. And so I did a qualitative study that was on community engaged internship experiences. So I interviewed students who had done credit-bearing internships with nonprofits, government agencies, K-12 schools, political campaigns, or anything civic related, as well as with supervisors of those students. And I was interested in understanding how community engaged internships could address goals related to professional development, civic development, and general benefits and challenges that they may have held for the students. And then on the community partner side was looking again at, could these internships be beneficial to them? What sort of challenges did they face? Because I was interested in this idea of having a hybrid professional internship experience while also having this community engagement experience. And what I really found was that kind of hybrid community engaged internship could address some of the challenges that students might face in getting involved in the community because they were getting credit for it. So they had that time baked into their academic schedule, had an opportunity to really reflect on their experience and really tie that community experience with their professional growth. So it was a really high impact kind of experience for the student. And the common sort of challenges that community organizations face with working with students, especially with student volunteers, is that there's not always the best accountability. So if a student is, oh yeah, I said I would volunteer for this, but there's really nothing holding me accountable. So if other things start to take up more of your time, maybe not following through can sometimes be a challenge. So again, having these kind of internships that were credit bearing, so the student was giving more time and they had this accountability, were really beneficial to the partners as well. And one of the areas that I found could be improved upon in these experiences was more of integrating kind of the civic development into the experience in a more intentional way. So really the students were going out in the community and they were having this kind of professional experience, but building in a more intentional way, opportunities for them to learn more about the local area, to really reflect on what they were experiencing at their service site, and to think about how that connected to their own kind of civic growth were areas that could be improved. So it was really fun. I enjoyed doing it and really was able to learn a lot from the students and the partners.
And aren't you and Professor Campbell working on a 101 course that's kind of in that vein right now?
Yeah. So David Campbell and I are teaching a UNIV class this fall that's called Make Binghamton Your Home. And it's focused all around helping students get to know the local area and really see themselves as members of the Binghamton community during their time here as students. We've spent the first few weeks of the class really helping students think about their own sort of values and priorities and exploring different ways to get involved. And so that's been a lot of fun. The idea for this class actually came from a student, Jake Knipes, who was in my scholars class a couple of years ago, who's involved in the Binghamton Policy Project. And he had approached me with this idea of having a class. That idea I just thought was really interesting. And so I approached Professor Campbell and we took that idea and ran with it with this UNIV class. So I'd like to give that example too, because it's a good example of how sometimes students have these ideas and they bring them and we really are able to take them and be like, yeah, that's a really cool idea. Let's make that happen. So that class has been a lot of fun.
No, yeah. And I think that's so wonderful too to give to freshmen, because I think a lot of times you come to this campus and first of all, it's an isolated place, but you do live and impact and affect the environment around us. And allowing these students from the door to understand their place within that community and their ability to affect it positively and see this actually as their home and not just a place to drop off and pop out. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. And I think one thing, this came out in general in my conversations with students, but definitely in the interviews that I did for my dissertation, is this idea of students kind of living in this bubble and then there's the community and you sort of exist separate from that. And I think sometimes even when students are getting involved in service and volunteering sort of work, it can sometimes give you a limited view and understanding of the community. And so one of the things we talk about in the Scholars 227 class and in other work that we do on campus is helping students have a more well-rounded view of the community or just even a different kind of approach to work with the community where we're not maybe focused just on what's lacking or what the problems are in the community, but really seeing the richness and the strengths that exist in this community as well. And so I think with this first year course that we're doing, really bringing in community leaders who are able to speak to things that are happening across the local area within arts and culture, having the executive director of the zoo come in and really get a more well-rounded view of the things that are happening and not just the challenges that the community might face. Because sometimes I think students have a more negative view of the community than is actually the case.
Definitely. Right. And it's kind of you view the community as you said, that outside the other thing. When this is a place where people live and enjoy and love and have their lives and families here. So there's so many cool opportunities just within the community. So that's really interesting. And so I think also students sometimes come in and feel because they don't know enough about a topic, they hesitate to just participate in any form of civic engagement. And so I think to close this whole thing out, what would be your advice to those people that are very hesitant to put themselves out there in that context out of just fear of being viewed as not knowledgeable enough or not meant to be there?
Yeah, I mean, I say this a lot, but I believe so strongly that we need all voices at the table to make our communities stronger. So everyone is going to bring their own unique perspective, their own strengths and skills to this work, and we need all of it. There's not one way to do this work. So I would say for students, getting involved and just taking time to listen can be a really good place to start. It's actually good to not come in and feel like you have all the answers right away, that you know everything. And I think sometimes acknowledging that and just giving yourself permission to maybe sit back and listen and learn from others can actually make it feel more inviting and safe to get involved. And that can include really listening to the community and what priorities they have, but also learning from, your peers. So I think getting involved, through student organizations that are maybe involved in civic and community life can be such a great kind of entry point, because you can have these more scaffolded experiences where you start as a member and maybe you're just attending some of the GB meetings and just kind of seeing what's going on. And then you can be on the e-board and maybe take on additional leadership opportunities in the future. But just getting involved and putting yourself out there and being open to really listen and learn.
Well, thank you so much for chatting with me and your wise words. Very happy to hear it all, and also learn some new things that I didn't know about all the work you do.
And so next up, we'll actually be talking to a fellow scholar and student here at Binghamton, Iris DeFino. Thank you so much for coming on. If you want to just introduce who you are, what your major is, and, general interests.
Hi, I'm Iris DeFino. I'm a senior. I'm a political science major with a human rights minor on the pre-law track.
Iris and I have a long and varied history, though we knew each other from the Scholars Program. But also, we did Source Project together our freshman year in the Disinformation and Naivete stream. So I wanted to talk to you today because you are someone that I look up to as an academic, a student, a scholar. But I find that you're so both knowledgeable and actively engaged within different aspects of the community, both in your professional work, but also in the organizations you choose to affiliate yourself with. And so just to start off, obviously you mentioned your poli-sci major, human rights minor. Where do you kind of see yourself post-grad? What are your goals?
So I'm hoping to eventually attend law school and practice as a public interest attorney, hopefully in the civil rights kind of area. I've relatively recently decided that I want to take a year or two off in between undergrad and law school to work as a paralegal, hopefully maybe with an org like the ACLU or something like that, with reproductive rights or voting rights. But eventually I do want to get the JD and practice in the public sector. I'm also considering doing a JD PhD program as well, to do a PhD focusing on political theory and voting behavior.
We love to hear it. And so from the door, when I met you, I felt like we were so early into our career and you were already whipping through internships throughout the Binghamton area. So do you want to just give a synopsis of the kind of places you've worked and the things you've done?
Yeah, sure. So I feel like I've kind of dipped my toes in a lot of different things within the Binghamton community, both on and off campus. I think one of the first major things that I really got involved with my sophomore year was Binghamton Just. So that stands for Justice and Unity for the Southern Tier. And that's an abolitionist program that's fighting against mass incarceration and arguing for the rights of incarcerated people. That was something that I actually got involved with because I was taking a class called Social Problems in the United States with Andy Pragetz, shout out. And he had one of his former students come in who was working for Just at the time to talk about the program and doing visitation volunteering at Broome County Jail. And I ended up getting involved just as a volunteer to begin with. And then they asked me if I would be interested in getting involved more in their official team. So this is an off-campus kind of organization. So it's a lot of different activists, scholars, attorneys, former attorneys in the Binghamton area that are fighting for criminal justice reform. And I was working mainly as their PR, social media, and advocacy chair. So I was running the social media, the Facebook. I was trying to do campus connections with the Binghamton University students, working with the Binghamton Policy Project to organize jail visits with other student volunteers. So we would bring students into the Broome County Jail once or twice a week. We'd have them meet with incarcerated people that would request visits. We would do case management. So we would record and document the stuff that the people that we would speak with were discussing, especially if there were any issues that we wanted to bring to the attention of local elected officials or the jail itself, especially if people weren't getting the commissary that they needed, if they weren't getting menstrual products, hygiene products, if they were being mistreated, especially on the basis of race or gender, sexuality. But that was a major thing that I've worked on. Unfortunately, I had to kind of step back a bit just because of my scheduling, but I'm very, very passionate about criminal justice reform, and just is always going to be very near and dear to my heart as something that I want to still be affiliated with even after I leave the Binghamton community. So then there's another internship that I did. This was associated more with my human rights minor, and I worked with Journey's End Refugee Services. So that was an immigration and asylum law firm in downtown Binghamton. Ever since I was pretty young, I thought I wanted to practice immigration law or do something regarding immigration and asylum law, just because I remember I would see news about the Syrian refugee crisis and issues of refugees' rights and humanitarian issues. And I wanted to be able to get involved in some way. And that was something that I remember being 13 or 14 years old and thinking, yes, this is what I want to do with my life. I want to go to law school. I want to help people in this way. So I was really excited to be able to get an internship like this, especially since I hadn't been able to really work in the immigration field yet. And that was an incredible experience. I got to shadow immigration attorneys. I would hold client intakes. So I met clients from all different countries, all different backgrounds. I would help take notes on their situations. And then I would distill all of that into court documents and appeals, mostly for asylum applications, especially people that were applying because of political asylum. We had a lot of clients coming from the conflict in Sudan, and then we had a lot of people also applying under the Violence Against Women Act due to femicides in South America. So it was a very emotionally charged kind of line of work, but it was really impactful for me, and I really felt like I could emotionally connect with the clients, and that really just affirmed the fact that I wanted to go into something more public interest related, because I think for me, policy, political science, and law are all intertwined with social justice issues, and that's what I'm really passionate about. And being able to see how that could affect people's lives and change the trajectory of their future was so important to me, especially if we were able to win cases and win people's asylum and they were able to stay in the Binghamton area and be safe.
That's such a rewarding experience to be using your skill set to actually help and affect change in people's lives that are genuinely struggling on such a profound level.
Definitely.
How did you end up getting the position? Did you find somewhere to apply? Did you hear about it from someone else?
Yeah, so this is actually something that I found through the Human Rights Minor website. So when I declared the minor, I was looking through to see all the different programs that were available, because they have different course requirements, but then they have internships that also count for credit, and this was one of them. So I think they mentioned it just on the website, but also the director of the Human Rights Program, Alexandra Moore, sent out an email just detailing the internships that were available and what each one kind of entailed. So they have a bunch of different internships on there, and I was able to just search through and apply that way. So yeah.
Really cool opportunities.
So then the summer after junior year, actually Rachel and I both partook in the Harper Law Council Public Interest Law internship. My placement was in New York City. It was in the Department of Housing Preservation and Development in the Housing Litigation Division. My unit that I was assigned to was the Tenant Anti-Harassment Unit, and I got to work with attorneys to attend housing court, specifically on cases related to landlord abuse, harassment, contempt of court, both civil and criminal. But most of my work actually for this, I did more of a legal research project focus because I wanted to get a different skill set experience. So for this project, I analyzed over 100 New York City court cases regarding tenant harassment. So I was very comprehensively filing through them on LexisNexis and then inputting data about specific complaints, violations, and then how the court was able to rule. And then we were able to use that information to inform future motions and arguments for upcoming cases so that we know what was effective in court, what wasn't, especially since the tenant harassment statute is a relatively new legal area in New York City law. So it's a way to see what's most effective and what isn't in terms of getting justice for tenants and holding landlords accountable. So that was also an incredible experience. I would definitely recommend anybody to apply for the Harper Law Council internship. I originally wasn't even going to apply because I thought I wasn't going to get it, but I'm glad that I did because I truly think that that did change the trajectory of my career and where I saw myself.
But yeah, I can definitely relate to how transformative that internship experience was. I personally interned at the Manhattan, New York Supreme Court under the wonderful Justice Cohen, who is a Binghamton alumni. And that was a wonderful experience, just exposing myself to court like every single day, seeing all kinds of hearings, seeing litigation in action, and also just exposing myself to actual law school students who were able to give me a ton of useful advice, specifically about things like, do I want to take a gap year? What kind of law am I interested in? And so they run that program every single spring where you apply for it. It's for juniors and seniors. They have all kinds of sites. So just as Iris was saying, keep an eye out on the pre-law email listserv on their website and take advantage of these things. Because I think Iris is crazy for saying that they couldn't get like that position considering their expertise and experience. It's true. But take advantage of those things because you never know, even though it can be super stressful and scary and you might diminish your own talents, always go for it because you never know how transformative the experience is going to be. But you didn't stop there.
Yeah. So then actually now this fall, I am working at the Q Center. So this is a bit of a shift because I think I've done a lot of more law and policy-based stuff. But this particular thing that I'm doing now, I'm actually working, as I said, on campus with the Binghamton University Q Center. I'm working as a SOGI educator, which is an acronym that stands for Sexual Orientation, Gender Identity Expression. So I run different like staff things for professors, faculty, staff on campus about how to better support queer students in the queer community. And then I also do similar kind of presentations in undergraduate classes about the nuances of gender identity, exploring sexuality, safety when it comes to sexual health, honoring people's pronouns, honoring people's just gender expression. And the reason why I actually wanted to get involved in this is because I'm also interested in more of the gender and sexuality-based issues of law, especially on the more national level, as we see with how current policy is definitely threatening certain members of the LGBTQ plus community in particular. And I think that it's important to be able to start even just on the smallest level, just with fellow peers as students or some of the older faculty and staff that are learning about how to support upcoming students with their transition to college, but also as they come into themselves and explore more of their identity. I'm also helping with organizing events in collaboration with other organizations on campus. So me and some of the other SOGI educators right now are trying to plan for events in collaboration with the Binghamton Policy Project or the Binghamton University Feminist Collective, Neurodiversity Club. There's an event that I'm hoping to host relatively soon to discuss heteronormativity in society, especially how that affects like political thought, political behavior, and rhetoric. But I still want to be able to get more involved on the Binghamton University campus because I think you can affect change at any level, even if that's just within your own community.
No, most definitely. And as you're stating, you are doing something a little bit different at the Q Center than you have been in the past. It's less legal, I guess, per se, even though you are training faculty and individuals on this campus in a way to protect students, most definitely. And also, I'm sure a lot of people come to you eager to learn, hopefully. But still, you've juggled a lot of different hats here in journeys to be more actively engaged in the community, intersect in a lot of different aspects of identity. But you carry yourself, even if it's not true, you carry yourself with confidence.
I try. I do my
best.
best.
You do. You're very articulate. You put yourself out there and you're advocating for the things you're passionate about. And so, especially now as a senior, what kind of skills have you had to develop to do that, one, for yourself? And two, do you have any advice for kids coming in campus now, freshly out of high school, and how they can get themselves involved in the kind of positions that you have? Because it takes a lot of inner strength, I think, to put yourself out there and get these kinds of roles and do the really good work that you do.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of things, and it's definitely a learning curve as you go. I think I still struggle sometimes, so I definitely do a bit of the fake it till you make it.
Right.
Because I feel like, I'm glad I come off as confident. Sometimes, like, I still struggle with validating my own accomplishments or comparing myself to other people who have done, quote unquote, more than I have. But just reminding myself that I belong in the spaces that I'm in. I'm here for a reason. I think I even struggled with that imposter syndrome just coming to the scholars program and thinking other people here are a lot smarter than me, but I can remind myself that I'm here for a reason too. So I think it's first just validating your right to be in a space because you've gotten there in the first place. And then also challenging yourself to reach a little bit further because you never really know where that will take you. And I think the first leap of faith is definitely the hardest. Like, I'm just a 19-year-old girl. You know, what are they going to get from me? But after being able to just rise to the occasion with opportunities like that, it kind of affirmed to me that my skills and my insights are valuable and that I can continue to do that. In terms of getting involved, it's definitely good to be able to kind of connect with professors because they can guide you to different organizations or involvements on and off campus that they think that you would be fit for. So even just like building your network, your community and your team of people to lean on. And that can be academic, professional, with mentors, with professors, or it can even just be among your peers. That's something that not a lot of people necessarily remember is that it's so important also just to lean on your friends. I think especially early on when you get a little bit like bogged down or discouraged or overwhelmed with everything that comes with college and developing your academic and professional self. Just being able to lean on that community is so important.
No, definitely. That was some wonderful advice from the Iris DeFino, I will in fact say. So important to take advantage of your resources. And there are resources on this campus, as daunting as it can seem. I mean, we are not the largest school in the country, but we're not small by any means. We're an R1 institution. It can be very overwhelming to even consider that you could be placed anywhere. But you'll be so surprised when you go to these internships or you work in these organizations. Your perspective can provide so much new insight for them to do brand new things. For example, like the research that you conducted was able to provide insight on successful strategies to help people, even though you're just an undergrad.
I think it's really important to recognize the value that you bring just from what you have. I do have a lot of different interests and different experiences with different social issues. But again, because a lot of my focus is on social justice work, I can recognize that all justice is inherently intertwined and all of the issues that I am passionate about are connected in some way. And like those different experiences can inform the insight that I bring to whatever new office or space or class that I'm in.
Yeah, every piece of knowledge, every experience, every relationship is valuable in some way. And expanding your views, your future, and just becoming a better, more insightful, knowledgeable, and helpful human being.
Exactly.
And thank you so much, Iris, for coming and talking.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I really think that your work is important and you've done a lot of amazing things despite not even having graduated college yet. And I think we're all happy to see what you do in the future.
I want to say thank you again to our two guests, Dr. Alison Twang and Iris DeFino, for coming on and talking about their amazing experiences and depth of knowledge about civic engagement here in the Binghamton area and in a general sense. And as always, it is Scholars with a capital S, and we will be back very soon.